Hello and welcome to Lockdown Beers and Rugby Chat. Hi, I'm Paul. I'll be your host today here on New Zealand Sports Radio. We're just under, about 50 seconds to go until 5 o'clock. That's when we'll crack open the beer. I've got an old Spates gold medal ale here to crack open at 5 o'clock. Don't want to start too early when we're working from home, folks. So yes, 5 p.m. is the time. So hopefully you are getting towards the end of your working day with about 30 seconds left until you go and turn off that work email and start winding down with us. Some of the stuff we'll talk about, Moana Pasifika have named another couple of players. There's some news about Sean Wainui's death, and also Sam Kane has had a chat about his rugby as well. So all of those things we will be talking about in about 10 seconds or so time after 5 o'clock. Don't forget, also join us at 8 p.m. this evening, where we'll look back at the All Blacks and look forward to that Wales game. There you go. You heard me opening that can of beer because you know what? It is 5 o'clock and giving it the traditional pour to leave the gas in the glass. I know some of you don't like that, but hey, I enjoy it, so it's all good. Each to their own is what I say. So, folks, yes, Sam Kane has come out and said that he's not ready for Test match rugby or Tier 1 Test match rugby. And so hence he won't be available for selection this coming weekend against Wales. He's hoping to have himself in a better place to take part in the last two weekends of games, which is obviously Ireland against the All Blacks and followed by France versus the All Blacks at 2-0 crackers at the end of the November tour. With Italy in between there, which he hasn't really mentioned, and I'm not sure whether he considers that to be a Tier 1 game or not. Obviously, it is technically, but let's be honest, it's one where we do think that the All Blacks will win that one comfortably. So, interesting news there from Sam Kane. He also mentioned that he's been enjoying campervanning down in the South Island, apparently. So cool for him on that one as well, even though his golf apparently has not been going quite so well. Folks, I think we're going to have a sort of little advert here at this point because I have released something recently. So I just want to show you that if you like it, have a look. If you don't, then no worries. I'll be gone. It'll be gone pretty quickly. Just very quickly have. So this is brought to you by Kia Play, which is the new thing that myself and a friend try and set up, where we've got some wooden horse stables, and you can see there that there is one available on the Trade Me. So if you're here in New Zealand, head over to Trade Me, search for wooden stable for schlick horses, and have a look at that. That's something that myself and a friend have put together. If you have any kids that might like to play with their horses and have a cool stable to do so, and there's some photos on there. It doesn't come with the horses or the cats, folks. Anyway, there we go. Josh says, if Kane felt he wasn't ready for Test rugby, then why did he go on tour? Well, basically because then he can play more rugby on tour and I guess condition himself and get ready to play Test rugby. Being here in New Zealand, it wasn't going to be clear as to how much rugby he would necessarily get with the whole COVID thing. Situation. Let's be honest, and could have ended up being sort of in isolation here and not being able to get out for those last couple of tests. So that would be my reason. My guess as to why he's gone out there is to continue his rehab with them. Obviously, he just had that one game in the Heartland Championship for King Country that was against Wainui there. So I think that was the. So I think that's probably why he has gone out there, is to be with the All Blacks fitness and conditioning people. One of the things, moving on to some sad news, one of the things that has come to light is that the coroner has been talking about Sean Wainui's death, and it is apparently being treated as a suspected suicide in that one. At the time when it was announced, I thought it was a very good sign that we didn't have all of those helpline numbers at the bottom of the articles, which we are doing now. Because I'll be honest with you, driving a car into a tree is one of the ways that or crashing a car is one of those I have considered committing suicide in the past. And that, unfortunately, was one of the things that sprung to my mind when this happened. Obviously, from personal experiences. Now, clearly, I haven't done that, and I thankfully am alive. And so, folks, if you need someone to reach out to, please, my DMs are always open. So please do feel free to reach out. If you want to email me, paul@nzsportradio.com. Look, whatever you say to me will be treated with confidentiality. If you need someone to speak to and you don't have someone, then please do reach out. It does help just talking about it with someone. I can promise you it will not solve everything, but it does help to share. A problem shared is a problem half, as they say. I'm not sure it goes that far, but just talking about it does help. So please do reach out. It's obviously extremely sad for his family and friends. If that is the case, it's not been confirmed either way, and I feel sad that he was hurting so much that if that is obviously the case. So very sad news there. As Joshua said, for such a young guy with so much in front of him, with family and having young kids, plus obviously also the rugby side as well on that one. So as Joshua says in the live chat, you only get one go at it, folks. Please reach out. That is very true. I do have Con joining me in about 4 minutes, so don't worry. It's whilst I have been going through the things quite quickly today, we'll be having a little bit more to go on that one. As Jason McCook says, yeah, talking is always a good start. Look, folks, if you want to hear about my mental health journey, you can go to YouTube. And I've done a number of videos. You'll find on the New Zealand Sport Radio YouTube channel around mental health. Just search for go to the playlists and you'll see the mental health on there. I talk about a number of topics there. So if you do, I know some people have reached out and said they found them useful. Look, I'm no expert on this. I just talk from personal experience. So if you want to go have a look at those, and please feel free to do so. And get a better understanding about some of this stuff if you've not if you've not experienced it, and or if you are experiencing it, then basically go and see someone else who has been through it to know you are not alone. You are you're not strange for feeling that way. It is a lot of people do feel this way, and say talking is always a good start, as Jason says on Facebook there. The other big news that we're going to chat about is going to be Moana Pasifika, or is that Moana Hawke's Bay? Because they definitely are building some combinations there in their squad. We now have players such we could be having sort of Inari passing to McClutchy, who might then pass it into the midfield to Tuala, who gives it an inside ball to Wainui, who coming from the back three to score a try. Yes, the two names that have been added to the Moana Pasifika squad are Danny Tuala and Logali Wainui in there who have been added into that one. Those two players, both apparently of Samoan descent, which is why but flagged with New Zealand flags on the Hawke's Bay Wikipedia page, so hence it's why myself and Stephen Harris probably didn't spot them as potential players into into this squad. So a couple of ones that have been rumoured over the last few days, but ones that we didn't pick up about 2 or 3 weeks ago when we did that show. Now, Josh was saying, are Hawke's Bay building into a big power like the New Zealand Five? Well, We probably would have said something similar about Bay of Plenty over the last couple of years. Clearly, this year hasn't gone quite so well. Whether obviously Clayton McMillan has moved on, they've brought new coaches in. Clayton McMillan being the head coach of the Chiefs. Now, I did ask him the other day whether with Razzie Erasmus being a director of coaching and running the water, whether he'd have Gatlin doing it, but he laughed and said no, Gatlin would not be doing the running water for the Chiefs next year. But look, some of these things can come down to just having the right coach, and if coaches change, then you can have a problem. Look at the way that Taranaki have suddenly changed from being a side that's struggling over the last few years to arguably the form team or the best team in the NPC this year. Definitely that's the form team in the championship. And what's changed there? Well, really the only change is that they've changed the coaching structure. So with Hawke's Bay about to basically lose their head coach at the end of the season as he heads over to be an assistant coach for the Western Force, will Hawke's Bay be able to continue this, or is this them reaching for fruition and they'll be in a bit of a decline or a bit of a have a bit of a quiet period next up? Players like players have built this off, even though he's injured. Is the other scrum half? I've gone blank. Oh, dearie me. Fakatava, thank you. Just remembered that name. So he, look, clearly there's a player who may not play for Hawke's Bay ever again because of All Blacks commitments, as we've seen with Brad Weber, who has disappeared as well. So you've got to. So it's is this a long-term position for Hawke's Bay? I don't know. Is the answer to that one? It's going to be interesting to see how they do replace Mark, the head coach there, Mark Ozic. Do they replace internally or do they go external? If they're going to do it internally, then look, a lot of the structures and processes that they've played with currently, you'd expect to continue and for it to continue. But apparently, is he the guy, the mastermind there of it? We've seen, as I say, Bay of Plenty totally replace their coaching setup and then struggle this year. Is that because they brought in new defensive systems or new systems full stop that the players just aren't used to and taking time to adapt to? So I'm not sure on that one. But looking at who are the big five currently, I mean, obviously Canterbury would be in there, but they're having a struggling season this season. Auckland would be. Then you've add in Waikato, who have been sort of up and down, had a really good start, but then struggled the last couple of games. Tasman would now be one of those, but wouldn't historically, because historically you'd have Wellington and Otago, basically where the Super Rugby franchises are. Obviously, Otago in the championship. So, yeah, I'm not sure who the big five really are in that one. And so Tasman seem to have set up a very good system that's bringing them sustained success over a period of time. You've obviously Canterbury there, Auckland thereabouts there, and Waikato. And look, they were in the championship only 3 years ago now, I think it is, that they got promoted. So look, they it is a cyclical thing on this one. Thank you for Joshua for bringing in some, Jason for bringing in a piece of news here saying that Brett Cameron has signed for 2022 with the Manawatu Turbos. That's a fantastic signing for them. Look, Brett Cameron has looked really good at the Turbos. Got away from the shackles that are down there in Canterbury and seems to be enjoying himself there. So I think he's off to Japan in the off-season rather than Super Rugby. But obviously that does, as it's played in the same, as the new Japanese professional league, we played in the same window as the Super Rugby, does mean he could be available for NPC. And Con, Great to have you here. Brett Cameron, a play I guess you've seen a few times. Must be happy with the, well, maybe a bit sad to see him doing so well, actually, not in red and black.
Yeah, well, no need to call them the shackles of the Crusaders or Canterbury, but whatever you call them. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, he's a good player. He's a good player, and good on him. Good on the Turbos for nabbing him. That's cool.
So yes, and kind of interesting to see where the Crusaders will go for that for their backup fly half with Mitchell Hunt, obviously of Tasman, down in the Highlanders. Clearly, they've got Richie Moanga as their first choice, but those backups, yeah, where are they going to come from? Because let's be honest, the Canterbury fly halves have not been setting the world alight this year, and as I say, Tasman have got Mitchell Hunt there. So, yeah, some shopping for Scott to do there, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think they seem to be a team that does some outlandish appointments as well, or maybe some unexpected appointments. I mean, obviously, our mate Pablo coming over. No one, even you guys didn't predict that, I suspect. But I even think like Digby, is it Digby Ioane? When he came in, I was going, what the? I still don't get that appointment. I know he was injured, but I still don't really get it. I mean, I hope he enjoyed his time over here because I don't think he spent much time on the pitch. But there has been the odd, unusual sort of appointment. But
Ready Ranger so could be this season.
Yep, it's true. So, but we could, he might nab a old sort of older, sorry, I should say, former AB or something like that to come in. But I suspect they would like to get a player that's a bit more of an up and comer, because Richie Moanga, shit, who knows what he's going to. Can we count on him to be there for another 4 years? Probably, but maybe not. Particularly with injury. I need someone.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's someone that the All Blacks are going to tell the Crusaders to rest as well. Let's be honest. He's not going to be. He'll be on a player management system.
He'll be up for a Japanese sabbatical. I mean, he's probably earned it. Getting a partial 1 year sort of sabbatical. I mean, he hasn't earned it in the same way that Kieran Reid and that have, but it'll be a few years away. He might be able to grab that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, if we look at the players who have done it recently, you've got obviously Bowden Barrett did it, as TJ Perinara. Well, he actually ended his contract and went over. His wasn't really a sabbatical per se. Brodie Retallick. I mean, all those players have been around a lot longer than Richie Moanga, and even Patrick Tuipulotu as well, because he's got more years in that black jersey. So, I would suggest he's got a couple of years, probably post Rugby World Cup.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
And on Richie Moanga, I just thought of this. It just popped into my head while you were talking, Paul. A couple of years ago, I did an interview with Richie Moanga, pretty random, but anyway, and he kind of admitted that he would like to play for the Roosters. So
wow, there we go.
So like him and TJ, maybe him and TJ were talking, but I got the feeling that he'd be pretty good at the other code, I'd imagine, and he's a big fan of league, and you never know, it could be one of those different situations of TJ. He's doing pretty well, so I don't think that's going to happen in a hurry. But that type of thing is going to happen more as the All Blacks need to keep players, but also give them the ability to, I guess, have their own OEs, so to speak, or different types of arrangements. And whether it's going to Japan, going to the UK for a year, getting some extra coin, or potentially playing for league, I'd imagine that would be their last idea, their last favoured option. Because of the injuries and everything like that, but you never know.
I was going to say, take half a year off to rest and recuperate the body. Head over to NRL.
Yeah. Japan, or I'd imagine that's the last option. But if someone's committed enough, we might get a sort of Michael Jordan going and playing baseball for a couple of years type arrangement with the All Blacks.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see. Wow, NRL, that's a massive call. I'm not sure that we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually going to happen.
Anytime soon do that, but there we go. Look, Sonny Bill Williams is yes, he
got one. He did. He got a year, didn't he?
Well, he just didn't sign. He was only signing 1 year contracts at the time. Now, the reason he was doing that, folks, I mean, a lot of people were very kind of critical of him. But look, he signed a very long deal with the Bulldogs when he was very young, and that burnt him. So, you can understand how, having been shackled like that, and the way he had to leave that, or the way he did leave that, not necessarily had to. I can see why he would keep to 1 year contracts for a while. Towards the end of his career, he did do a couple of year contracts.
Yep.
But yeah, I can see the emotional reason why he wouldn't, why he took that route there with that one. But yeah, I can't see players heading out to NRL. It's just way too attritional and way too competitive. But there you go.
We'll see. No, just kidding.
Well, we will see. True. Little interesting one here. Joshua Scott comes up with around Karevi and McMahon not touring Europe because their clubs have said no. The Karevi one, I wasn't sure whether that was actually a club decision or whether that was a personal decision for himself that he decided not to go on that piece because obviously he'd been in the various bubbles that the Wallabies had to go through to get through the mid-year games and the Rugby Championship, and obviously with him heading overseas, that I thought he wanted some time with family before he disappeared. So I thought that might be part of it, rather than just purely on that his club had said no. So interesting one there, if that is the case. And look, the Rugby Australia have decided that they want to work with the Japanese clubs rather than try and have a confrontational relationship with them. So look, it's going to be a balancing act there around the difference between club and international rugby. And let's be honest, the Japanese league is probably the only league in the world that isn't funded by international handouts, whereas pretty much every single other league actually also Major League Rugby as well. Sorry, that also doesn't. But if you think of the Gallagher Premiership, they survive off. Well, then they make a loss, and B, they survive off RFU funding. Over in France, the French Union hands down a lot of the Six Nations money again to the leagues there. The whole of URC is funded by Six Nations, obviously, except for South Africa, which is funded by the Rugby Championship, essentially. And obviously over in Super Rugby Pacific, well, Super Rugby historically has not made any cash, and that's been funded by All Blacks and Wallabies handouts, essentially. So, one of the few leagues in the world that isn't, that top league isn't is funded by companies, not by international rugby. So, we'll see. It has a different driver than the other ones, which will be interesting to see. Joshua mentioned there's apparently that the Bulldogs had some sort of meth head culture. Yeah, and if you,
I think it means meathead, doesn't he? Or have you spelled that wrong?
Oh, he's got meathead.
Yeah, that might be libel, Josh. Sorry, it might be libel.
Culture. Now, look, if you listen to the Standoff, our rugby league show, they do say that one of the ticking time bombs, or one of the issues that the NRL has decided to basically bury its head in the sand is around drugs. So more so cocaine than meths, to be honest. But yeah. Oh yeah, I guess no. Meathead culture, excessive drinking and drugging. Yeah, no, I think he actually meant meathead rather than meth head. I think cocaine probably rather than meths is the drug of choice.
I'm saying you might have a libel issue there, Paul, calling them meatheads.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. Don't worry.
No one listens to this show anyway. So we're all good. We're all good. You've got to actually cause some damage. You can only cause damage if lots of people actually listen, right? On that one. So yes. other news that came up in here, Joshua Scott, he's backing Joshua to have a cracking campaign with the Chiefs next year. Look, it's his on-field performances are not the issue, right? He can play. There's no two ways about it. He's an All Black for a reason. The question marks are purely around off the field. Now, getting away from Dunedin and the university, so-called party university lifestyle down there, will that make a difference? Being up in Hamilton, I know a few of you are rather disparaging about what goes on in this Tron and whether it is a boring city or not. But yeah, Conway, what do you think of his? What do you expect from Josh next year?
I don't think it's the Dunedin location that is bringing him. Well, I don't think it's the key thing to blame him, and it's Dunedin's hardly Auckland, or the great lights of the terrace in Christchurch. I'm just kidding there, but look, I think he will grow up, and hopefully, get a bit more focused. It's happened before, not with everyone, but I think he is. It's hard to say whether I agree with you, Josh. I think he's due for one, and I think immaturity, as Jason says, he could. He's a great player, and I don't think he's going to be our first choice, number 10 in New Zealand ever. But I think he could get himself back up to where he should be, which is somewhere between 3 and 4 or 5 or whatever it is at the moment. It's kind of complicated with the All Blacks and our number 10s, given we've got great players like D-Mac and Geordie. So yeah, I think he could be good. I'll be keeping a keen eye on him because I think the Chiefs have had an interesting couple of seasons, and at the beginning of last season, I was having a bit of a debate with my brothers about where the Chiefs were going to pick, and we do picks at the beginning of last season. Actually, it was this most recent season, which is also last season, and where they think the Chiefs are going to be. And I said, look, I don't know. The Chiefs are just one of those teams where I can't pick them, and they were putting them in 4th or 5th position in New Zealand, and I was saying I think they could be, they could pip the Blues and come in second, and that's how it went. So they are a team that could be they had such a poor second part of the previous season is why everyone thought they were going to do rubbish. But I've got more expectation on them than I do the Blues this coming year, which is a big call. But that's what it is. I think they could do really well. Crusaders number 1, of course, but that crown can't last forever. Yes.
Jason, did help Otago last week. Look, absolutely, and look, as I say, the problems for Joshua are not on the pitch. He can play. He's a player, absolutely. There's no two ways about it. And and chatting to, I did get with his head coach, Tom Donnelly, the other week when they were up at Bay of Plenty. Yeah, he was very happy with Josh on the pitch and how he was performing was cracking. Some comments in here. Look, Joshua, you're quite right about league. Look, it's a great game in its own right. It's different to rugby. It's a different sport, just like football's a different sport. So our comments are around that. But no, it is a cracking game on the pitch. They've got a few issues off the pitch that they need to sort out. But then again, it's been like that forever. Cool. I think that's probably just everything that's been there. I mean, just want to catch your thoughts on Danny Tuala and Lalagi Visanai, both signing from Moana Pasifika today from Hawke's Bay. That's most of Hawke's Bay seems to be heading up to South Auckland for the first half of next year. Your thoughts on those couple of signings?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to pretend to know a heck of a lot about them, to be honest, Paul. But it made me actually do a little bit of recon on them. So those players, and I guess that's the good thing about this. I think how many are there many? I saw a post just semi-related to this. Just to finish that, they look like there's some good players. I definitely have seen a few of them play, but just not that much. So I might need to take your thermometer on that, Paul. But have there been many players from Taranaki that are heading to Moana Pasifika yet? Because I enjoyed seeing that post on Twitter. I think it was Twitter or Facebook from the Taranaki guy saying we've got a few Super Rugby players if anyone wants them, basically. But anyway, what's your take on the signings, Paul? Even though you might have to repeat yourself from earlier.
Oh, good. So I think that two players who are clearly in one of the two form teams of the moment. So two players who are in form, playing well. Part of the Hurricanes setup. Look, let's be honest. Centres and back three players at the Hurricanes. Well, look, they're already stacked anyway. Trying to break through there isn't easy, and so not surprising that they've looked for other opportunities to get more game time. The fact that both got Samoan heritage means that allows them to do this as well. And again, where are they in the All Blacks pecking order compared to potentially Samoan pecking order if they want to play international rugby? So I think good signings for them, and also good signings for Moana Pasifika. You got this is effectively going to be a scratch side, right? With the NPC running up towards the end of January, end of November, meaning that the players basically will probably not be able to do pre-season until January. Means that Moana Pasifika is going to have a very short pre-season. So having Enari, McClutchy, Tuala, Vizanai as combinations that can start and know how each other play, I think is a smart move from that point of view. Clearly, Super Rugby is a step up from NPC, but they're going to want some combinations that they can rely on early on whilst they sort of bed in some of that and get the players to know each other. So I think it's a good signing.
And I think it is fair to say that it may be unfair to say, but it's true that if this was just Super Rugby Aotearoa, Moana Pasifika, it would feel tough for them. The fact that they might have some slightly poorer or very, reasonably poorer Australian teams, and offense to any Australian listeners, that will allow them to have a bit more of a chance. And I'm thinking, ideally the Waratahs are doing a bit better this year, but they have been poor, teams young and struggled. Obviously got the Drua to play against as well. That might be a little bit more green. And then I guess the Rebels have also struggled. So, there is a chance here, given the players that we're seeing, that Moana Pasifika might struggle a bit against New Zealand Super Rugby teams. But I think, I'd love to be proven wrong there. It's just, how usually, given the time together and lack of prep and everything like that, it could be tough. But, I'd back them to pip a couple of scalps over in Oz.
Look, Australian listeners, if you want to light up the old Twitter replies and the live chats at Connor, yes, he is being totally offensive. Come at him. Look, all you got to do is look at the way that Super Rugby Trans-Tasman went this year, and clearly, look, we know the established New Zealand sides are stronger than the Australian ones. The Force were out of Super Rugby, have come back in and having to do a bit of rebuilding. The Rebels, it's really neat. When they had a good season, it was when all their players were playing the NRC for the
Victoria.
Gone blank. I want to call it the Melbourne Spirit, but I could be wrong there. So the Melbourne team, and hence they had that those combinations. Now that continuity of time together, and that ceased to happen after that, and they kept on bringing in new players and too much change. So they've not really had a settled side for a while now. Having a new coach with Vessels heading back to South Africa isn't necessarily means they're going to have a settled one this time. But look, clearly And one of the things we can say, looking at the record of teams like the Force and the Rebels when they arrived in Super Rugby, it took a long time for them to become competitive, right? Moana Pasifika, Fiji, and Drua are going to take time to get up to speed, right? So people who think they're going to be competitive from day one, they're not. Now, the Fiji and Drua are aiming to make the finals. But you've got to remember, the finals means top 8 out of 12 teams.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? You don't even have to be. You don't even have to have a winning. You can have a losing record and make the finals.
Absolutely. Although you could have a losing record in the old Super Rugby and make the finals, which some teams did. Slightly losing, I think. One team got 8th in the old Super Rugby, Super 18, I think it was, or maybe it was Super 15. And managed to slip in. It might have been the Cheetahs or something like that. Managed to get 8th. I could be wrong about that, but it was possible. Now it's going to be likely that 3 of the teams, or 2 of the teams, 2 of the teams definitely will have a losing, record. Which is, I guess, they've got an idea for what they want. They needed to. It was a compromise, and I suppose everyone loses in a compromise a little bit. So yeah.
But again, you look at something like the NRL, for example. They've got 16 teams, and half the teams make the finals, right? Folks, don't look. Yes, it's 8 out of 12, so it's slightly more. It's slightly more than half, but
a lot more.
It's okay. It's a lot more.
double the number of teams don't get to go through an NRL as they do on this one. But I take your point.
But yeah, it's funny how people will bash Super Rugby formats, whereas they'll go, "Oh, it's normal for NRL. That's okay." So, folks, look, it's not that different to NRL in some ways. So let's just get used to it and actually just enjoy the rugby rather than moan about the format.
I always think in these cases that it's very likely that we, being in around the board table having these discussions, would actually arrive at the same conclusions. And I always think that the former Paul's shaking his head for the listener.
The reason I'm shaking my head is I actually came up with a viable alternative format to this. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, but if you were the dictator Tsar of New Zealand rugby or Sansa, yeah, you'd get your way. But when you got sort of 8 people and 10 or 12 unions with everyone's point of view, you got to find a compromise. And I always find that the good old days of Super Rugby, people hated the conference system, and when you had that web of that mess of lines on everything, it really sucked. But you could really understand how they got there. Teams, countries the round robin didn't really work perfectly, given the travel and everything like that. And countries like New Zealand liked to play a home and away game against their compatriots, and so we wanted that system. But then the only way to achieve that was to have some form of conference system. And also the Australian teams wanted to have a shot of the finals. So you had all these sort of reasons why, and when you take it into account, you can see why they got there. I think in this case, if you had the top 4, New Zealand Rugby said probably we're not going to allow minimum teams in there, because that's probably what Australia would have said. We want at least one of our teams to be able to get into the semis, like the good old days, and they would have said no, we're not going to do that. And I think the benefit of having the 8 teams means that the Australian teams, if they have a shocker of a year, which is possible, then they'll at least be able to have a respectable sort of, they'll have at least a couple of teams in the quarterfinals. But it also allows the Moana Pasifika and the Fiji Drua to have a shot, which is important for them. So it allows them to come in.
Yeah, I'll be honest. My option would not have given them a shot.
And me too. I wouldn't have done it as well. I just know that you can understand why they've got there, and it covers off those few little negatives. But yeah.
Yeah, and look, and again, as you say, if we hark back to when we first got conferences, they decided to go with a very complex conference system rather than making it simple, which is what they should have done. What they should have done, actually, basically gone and said it, say, South Africa versus Australasia, and done a NFL style where you have the NFC. NFC
There's
East,
a lopsided number of teams though on each side.
So what? Who cares? But you just say, okay, who cares about lopsided number of teams? What we're basically just saying is, you come up with a champion, we'll come up with a champion, and that's your Super Bowl.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would have been great.
much better than having this 3 teams from 2 conferences and 5 teams from the other 2 conferences, where it just got too crazy to try and understand. So
also Japan being in their conference was a bit of a weird little flourish of theirs too.
True.
But what were you going to do? You couldn't put them in the New Zealand one. It would have had 11 teams in the conference. That was a bit fucked. But yeah.
Well, no, the other way of doing it was to put Argentina into the New Zealand conference, but they said no because we want to be able to make the finals. Put Japan into the Australian conference and then have 6 teams from South Africa. So you have 3 conferences of 6. That kind of then makes sense.
That would have worked. Yeah.
That would have worked. But Argentina said, no, we don't want to lose every single game.
Yeah, fair call too. Yeah.
So, so you kind of get why, as you say, it ends up being done by committee, which is the problem. Anyway, folks, we've overrun, as we always do, because when I give a guest, because it's always fun to talk rugby. We'll be back at 8 o'clock, where we'll look back at the All Blacks game against USA. That won't take very long, let's be honest. We'll look forward to the All Blacks game against Wales. Also, folks, for your ears only, there is a special episode coming out tomorrow, where I've had a chat with the Attacking Scrum podcast, who are a Welsh podcast. And we've gone through and talked about Wales and previewed Wales for this game. So if you want to get the Welsh view, become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio over at patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio. As I say, we'll have that special will come out tomorrow. So thank you, Con. Thank you, everyone who's been in the live chat. Stay safe, get vaccinated. Let's get back to normal, and have a great day.